All right, people, welcome to another session. This time we're going to talk about some bedroom vocal mixing. So, I know a lot of people go in their bedrooms, use a mic interface, and just go at it recording vocals. But a lot of the time, yeah, it does sound clean and everything, but it could sound better. So, this day we're going to talk about bedroom vocal mixing, basically, and some of the practices that I use in order to clean up a lot of these vocals and get them ready to actually be mixed. Because a lot of the time in the recording inside of a bedroom, they're dark, they're dull, they're muddy, reflections off of four wall, square, rectangular patterns, making those reflections just add up on each other, and you get awkward, constructive, and destructive interferences that it doesn't play well together, but they're good enough to treat and mix and make a song. So that's what we're going to work on. So the session here is by it's called track is called Nimbus by
Open the eyes, open the mind.
Quez the Natty Jedi and King Rich.
Waves like gaze, grab my surfboard. Shawty with the thighs.
Okay. And as you see, I have rows of stuff. Now, don't be scared. Is not take all of these plugins in order to get that sound. The only tracks I'm actually concerned with, I'm working with today, are the tracks by Quez the Naughty Jedi on the verse 2 and verse 2B. I was treating his vocals and sending them back in order for the mix, for the vocals to sit in the mix properly. So let's go ahead and dive into this. I'm gonna do this one at a time. These are practically the same except for a few small tweaks and a lo-fi here. So what I'm actually gonna do is only concern myself with this track. And this is his verse track, which is probably what a lot of you guys are going to be really focused on. If you're primarily doing hip hop and rap, you're going to be concentrating on the verse. So that's what we're going to do. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and have this set for repeated playback. Make sure loop playback is selected. Okay. And I'm going to turn off all of these.
Blind but wide open, wings never broken. Heat of the show rays, telling me to lower my altitude. Chunky do switch to cruise control and be the main exponent.
Okay. One thing I'm going to do though, this was a bounced channel, if I believe the Quest C3 and 4. Quest C, now I separated them because they are the same. They were given to me in stereo, so I split them up in mono on purpose. What they really sounded like is we're gonna do like this. But now we're keying out all 1 and 2.
Blind but wide open, wings never broken. Heat of the soul rays, telling me to lower my altitude. Chunk of do switch to cruise control and be the main exponent. Power up the world is.
Okay. To give you a better listen, I'm gonna go ahead and take this off.
Blind but wide open, wings never broken. Heat of the soul rays, telling me to lower my altitude. Chunk.
Okay. So that's what we are working with. Now what I'm gonna do, I'm actually gonna move these. I can't because it's stereo. I'm gonna leave this mono, and I'm just gonna use this one mono field right here and send that over to here. So track, and we're going to Quest C2. All right. So now
Lower my altitude, chunk of do, switch to cruise control and be the main exponent. Power up the world as much as possible before you.
okay, that is what we're going to mix. Just that. Because the second vocal over here is the exact same thing. So we're only going to concentrate on the mono file. Typically, you want to edit these in a mono if it's a mono source. Now, there's a lot of exceptions. But if possible, edit this in the mono source. Saves a lot of time and resources on your system. So the first thing I
Blind but
did,
wide open, wings never broken. Heat of the soul rays telling me to lower my altitude. Chunk of deuce, switch of cruise control and
de-esser. And this can be a very important item because when you're recording in a bedroom environment, typically you're losing a lot of highs, but what is there is going to be everything probably around 10K and above. So while you're going to have a lot of scooped mids or hidden mids and a lot of your 4K range is gone typically in a room because it's being overshadowed and masked by all your low end frequencies, a lot of the time what's left though that comes through is your all of that. So you got this bulky low end and you got all these S's and T's still going through the mix. So the first thing I do is take care of that. And you don't have to do anything extreme, but just enough where you hear a difference.
blind but wide open, wings never broken. Heat of the soul rays telling me to lower my altitude. Chunk of deuce, switch of cruise control and be the main exponent.
As you see, enough to hear a difference. I'm really averaging around -3, -6, but there are some areas where it captures a lot of breath. When you get to those areas in breath, this is where you want to use automation and cut out the breath with automation if it's too extreme. If you hear it as if it's hitting the mic, then you may want to carve some of that out. That will also allow the de-esser not to work on the breath because there's not enough level getting to the de-esser. That's how that works. So now we have the de-esser going through.
Blind but wide open, wings never broken. Heat of the soul rays telling me to.
The next thing I did was some EQ. Notice these values, 250, 500. If you ever use golden ears, this is probably a frequency, two frequencies that you probably know a lot. Mud lives in between 250 and 500. What I decide to do typically when I first start is just go at these two frequencies, 250, 300, and 500. Those are my go-to frequencies to listen where mud might be in that source. In this, I found it at 500 and 250 on the dot. Well, I found it at 500, and then I said, let me take the octave lower. Okay, I'm playing on the harmonics, but specifically the octave, because if it's resonating a lot at 500, it might be resonating a good amount of bit at 250. And notice that I'm using proportional values, -6 here, -3 here, because if I'm taking out 500, if that's where it's really living, it's only living a little bit at 250. I don't need to take a whole nother 6 decibels out of its performance. That's twice the energy. 6 decibels is twice the energy. I don't need to do that. So if I'm doing that, and also gave it a higher Q value just to take out enough for it to feel good. Okay. So now when I play this,
Blind but wide open, wings never broken. Heat of the soul rays telling me to lower my altitude. Chunk of deuce, switch of cruise control and be the main exponent. Power up the world as much as possible before you depart from all your factors and the ones that came before them. Now they
complete difference. Complete difference. There's not even a question.
blind but wide open, wings.
You hear the honk in there, blind and brown woman, that honk sound.
Blind but wide open, wings never broken. Heat of the soul rays telling me to lower.
It sounds like everything kind of pushes back into where it's supposed to be and where it belongs. Okay. So get done with that. And I also high pass 80. I choose 80 because past 80 is sub region. Used for a number used for film stuff when you throwing things in a sub bass channel. So one of my go-tos is between 75 to 80 on any kind of vocal. My next one was, I said, okay, part of me still heard a little bit of room left. I'm going to mute this right here.
Blind but wide open, wings never broken. Heat of the soul rays telling me to lower my altitude. Chunk of deuce, switch of cruise control and be the main exponent.
See, it was still dark. It was still dark to me. So I said, there's still something left that I'm not getting out, and may or may not a lot. But at this point, I believe I've listened to the two channels in stereo, which is probably the reason why I took out 6 dB at this point, because I didn't know exactly how the who I was giving this to was going to play with both of the vocals. But I heard mud between the two of them summing together, and
Blind but wide open, wings never broken. Heat of the soul rays telling me to lower my altitude. Chunk of deuce, swish.
so that's what I took out. But then I said, okay, I got rid of the dark. Let's accentuate his vocal performance, which is why there's 2 decibels on 2000. It's a shelf. I need all of that high frequency content to come up, all of it, the whole range just to come up. He needs to live above a room. He needs to sound like he was never recorded in a bedroom.
Blind but wide open, wings never broken. Heat of the soul rays telling me to lower my altitude. Chunk of deuce, swish of cruise control land.
You see the difference? Now it sounds like what would have been considered a room, a dark, muddy, reflective box has now been carved away. Everything that represents it has been carved away, and we have enhanced the performance, the frequency spectrum of its performance to where you can't place that as if it was recorded in a box, because this right here, this lift does not represent a room.
Blind
It's
but
too
wide
bright.
open, wings never broken. Heat of the soul rays telling me to lower my altitude.
But remember, in order to get to this part, you have to make sure you carve out what's not supposed to be there. If you just go ahead and boost all the high frequencies, then you didn't get rid of the room. You just added high frequency content on top of him recording in a room. And that's just going to sound terrible. Okay. I'll be discussing this plugin later. I love this plugin. It's called RVox. Why is it great? It's because it gives you a gate,
Blind but wide open,
and they
wings
pick
never
some good
broken. Heat
attack
of the
and
soul
release times for
rays.
this gate. So I use it for any time when he's not performing, and after I go through and delete all the no audio where there's no audio going through, I also have a gate here to where I make sure that audio is silenced. Any noise, any rumble, any of that. It's down here at -70. It can probably be here at -60, but at least that I will make sure I take out even the noise of the preamp that they are using is gone. Okay.
Blind but wide open, wings never broken. Heat of the soul rays telling me to lower my altitude. Chunk of deuce, swish of cruise.
Okay. If you heard a difference, because there was a I wouldn't say it's a big difference, but it's enough difference. This tackled some of his transient responses.
Blind but wide open, wings never broken. Blind but wide open, wings never broken.
The point of this was to calm a lot of the all that attack right before he records. Everything was kind of rounded and shaved off. So this was now a solid performance.
Blind but wide open, wings never broken. Heat of the soul rays telling me to lower my altitude. Chunk of deuce, swish of cruise control land. Be the main exponent. Power up the world as much as possible before you depart from all your factors and the ones that came before them. Now DJ the Bush, man, cooling with the bush. K, that sparkle in the sky.
Okay. So I'm doing this in order, which you'll see next, in order to bring up the level of his body. So I'm compressing, rounding off some of those transient, some of those spikes, those dynamic spikes that he might be giving off, some of that attack time in his rapping, in order to reinforce his body of his performance. Because now, since we took out the room, we can now actually build the strength of his vocal up, which is another plugin I'll talk about later. Is the MV2. This, if I'm from what I'm hearing, this is a upward compressor. If you don't know what upper compressor is, I can explain that in a later video. But what it's essentially doing is a compressor compresses compresses signal. Okay. Compresses signal in order to raise the average level of a track. But it does something after the threshold. What an upward compressor does, it raises the signal before the threshold. So, where you will have a 1-2 ratio, you will have a ratio lower than 1, a 0.8 or 0.9. So, it essentially is the opposite of a compressor. It raises the low level energy and brings it up. That's what's called an upward compressor. But it's still, the reason why it's still called a compressor is because it's still reducing the dynamic level. So instead of taking the top peaks and bringing them down, we're taking what's essentially the low peaks and bringing them up to the high peaks. That is why it's called an upward compressor. So let's just hear what's going on right now.
Blind but wide open, wings never broken. Heat of the soul rays telling me to lower my altitude. Chunk of deuce, switch a cruise control and be the main exponent. Power up the world as much as possible before you depart from all your factors and the ones that came before them. Naughty J the Bushman, cooling with the Bush K. That's
Okay. So what I'm using this for is to bring back some of that high frequency content for you be able to hear what he's saying. So you'll be able to hear his nuances, you'll be able to hear him speak clearly, and you know exactly what he's saying.
blind but wide open, wings never broken. Heat of the soul rays telling me to lower my altitude.
Okay. If I want to just to show you what the low level will do.
Blind but wide open, wings never broken. Heat of the soul rays telling me to lower my altitude. Chunk of deuce, switch a cruise control and be the main exponent. Power.
So as you just witnessed, that brings up low level. Now, in his vocal, since we treated this pretty good, there's not a lot of low level energy inside of his vocal. There's no 80 hertz, 100 hertz, 40 hertz, kick, sub, bass, that kind of content inside of here. So we don't have to worry about that. There's nothing in there. Now, the next few is enhancement plugins, what I like to call. This is what I also call an enhancement plugin, but these next few is what I do after I get my vocal sounding good. So everything right here is about all you need to treat the vocal. The de-esser, get rid of the mud, perfecting this tonality of the vocal, and a little bit of compression. And sometimes I don't even use RVox. I typically would use an R compressor, but seeing as though I can be a little bit more aggressive, I don't have to be very nitpicky with this because I'm also writing the fader, which I'll show you. I decided to go ahead and just use the RVox component here. So bringing in enhancement stuff like the NV2 just to get clarity out of his vocal. Next thing I use is my favorite EQ plugin, favorite one, the Pultec Style by Puic Tech. It's a Waves plugin on the Jack Joseph collection, but this does an amazing thing. Anything between 5 to 10 is absolutely astonishing what it does. This is a boost and attenuation plugin. I will cover later. However, this is what it does to my vocal.
Blind but wide open, wings never broken. Heat of the soul rays telling me to lower my altitude. Chunk of deuce, switch a cruise control and be the main exponent. Power up the world as much as possible before you.
You hear how his throat just opens, and it's now you hearing the entire diaphragm of his vocal just comes out. And why? Because I added this 8K back. This is one of my favorite frequencies to go to for enhancement. It's 8K. It does a lot. So 5, 10, and 8 are amazing things. I use this plugin to understand if I EQ'd and compressed well in my chain beforehand. If I put this on and the vocal sounds astonishingly better, I did my job here. if I try to use this plugin and no matter what I tweak, it doesn't get better, then whatever I'm working on needs work. I still need to go back and work on it. When I use this plugin, I use plugin to know that whatever I did, this should take it to the next level. And in this case, it does.
Blind but wide open, wings never broken. Heat of the soul rays telling me to lower my altitude. Chunk of
See, that's dark,
cruise
real
control
dark.
and be the main exponent.
And that comes out a lot. And in the mix, it also comes out a lot. And I'm going to run through these plugins in the mix. Remember never to mix this stuff in solo. So I decided to go back and add some energy inside of here. You see on this plugin, 500, 250, I took that out. Well, the question might be, why am I adding 500 here? And then I'm also dipping out 700 right here. The short answer is I just heard it and it sounds better. I flipped between 700 and 500 here and it sounded better. The long term answer to this, the way these work, they work by special curves. And these curves are different than your typical parametric EQ. So what may be 500 here is not 500 here in the sense of the way the curve is shaped. So that's what I'm using. So when I bypass this,
blind but wide open, wings never broken. Heat of the soul rays telling me to lower my altitude. Chunk of switch the cruise control and be the main exponent.
Just enough to bring his presence, just enough to give him enough girth inside of his vocal to be on top of the track. I don't want him falling into the track and you lose clarity of what he's saying. And so this 500 helps reinforce the 1K that's already inside of his vocal. Because 1K, if you remember from my last video, is my frequency for energy. And here we were concerned with energy being in the room. This is helping treat his vocal now because we were able to take out everything that we didn't like before. I can add a good 500 with this curve in that's going to enhance his vocal since there's nothing else getting in the way. So once I did that, I also took a slight dip at 700 just to carve out if there was any resonant frequency around 500, then that's what I heard.
Blind but wide open, wings never broken. Heat of the soul rays telling me to lower.
Hidden plugin, another one. 3 hidden plugins in this one chain. Lo-fi. It's a really good one. Just take a look at the numbers I'm using, 0.2 and 0.1. Sound like it doesn't make a difference until I bypass it.
Blind but wide open, wings never broken. Heat of the soul rays telling me to lower my altitude. Chunk of switch the cruise control and.
Okay, it does more than turn it up, but the saturation and distortion, if you have Pro Tools, just play with this on practically any track. If you need beef, girth, body, whatever you're looking for that it needs weight, this plugin adds a lot of weight.
Blind but wide open, wings never broken. Heat of the soul rays telling me to lower my altitude. Chunk of
Okay, so now I'm going to play this in the mix. All right. Do. 1 second. There we go.
Blind but wide open, wings never broken. Heat of the soul rays telling me to lower my altitude. 2, chunk of switch the cruise control and be the main exponent. Power up the world as much as possible before you depart from all your factors and the ones that came before them. Now the J the Bush, man, cooling with the Bush K. That's sparkling in the sky that cause the globe is just a pigment, man. Moving at the speed of Superman, if it was lit, man. As possible before you depart from all your factors and the ones that came before them. Now the J the Bush, man, cooling with the Bush K. That sparkle in the sky that across the globe is just a big man. Moving at the speed of Superman if it was lit, man. Fueled by the gas that I just refilled in my tank, man. That 187, great selection, no contraception, it must be heaven. Whoa, can you blind but wide open, wings never broken. Heat of the soul rays telling me to lower my altitude. Chunk of switch the cruise control and be the main exponent. Power up the world sky that cross the globe is just a big man. Moving at the speed of Superman if it was lit, man. Fueled by the gas that I just refilled in my tank, man. That 187, great selection, no contraception, it must be heaven. Whoa, llama wide open, wings never broken. Heat of the soul rays telling me to lower my altitude. Chunk of deuce, switch a cruise control and be the main exponent. Power up the world as much as possible before you depart from all your factors and the ones that came before them. Now the J the Bush, man, cooling with the bush. K that sparkle in the sky that cross the globe is just a big man. Moving at the speed of Superman if it was lit, man. Fueled by the gas that I just refilled in my tank, man. That 187, great selection, no contraception, it must be heaven. Whoa, llama wide open, wings never broken. Heat of the soul rays telling me to lower my altitude. Chunk of deuce, switch a cruise control and be the main exponent. Power up the world as much as possible before you depart from all your factors and the ones that.
An absolute difference. And this is mixing. Well, let's go back to the title. Bedroom vocal mixing. See you soon. Make sure to follow me on Courtesy of the Brew at all places. SoundCloud.com. SoundCloud.com, Courtesy of the Brew. We got Instagram, it's Courtesy of the Brew. And then I'm at Courtesy of Calm on Instagram, SoundCloud, Twitter, just all that stuff. Facebook.com as well, Courtesy of the Brew. So don't forget, I'll have the links in the description. And I'm thinking about calling these Tech Tuesdays. If y'all got a better name for this stuff, I'm going to drop a video like this every Tuesday. So please stay tuned, follow, subscribe. If you want to listen to any production, Beast House, that kind of thing, that's on my Instagram, Courtesy of the Brew. So all these links will be in the description below. Subscribe and you will get further updates. If you haven't already, check out my website, courtesyofthebrew.com. Everything is also posted there. So, deuce.